Welcome, everyone. Our first speaker of the evening is Sherene Hassan, who is the Education Director at the Australian Islamic Museum in Northcote. Her museum tours seek to transform perceptions and promote respectful interfaith dialogue. She also runs a program called Coffee with Sherene to enable people of different cultures to meet and learn from each other. Since 2001, she has conducted over 1,000 information sessions to diverse groups. In 2007, Sherene was selected by the Age newspaper as one of Melbourne's 100 most influential people. And in 2016, she was awarded Muslim Woman of the Year at the Australian Muslim Achievement Awards. On January the 26th, 2018, Sherene was awarded an Order of Australia medal. Welcome, Sherene.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. It's an absolute honour to be part of this event. I'd like to begin in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we gather on today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. So I'll be talking about the Islamic Museum of Australia. The museum is an exciting and unique centre showcasing the rich heritage, arts and achievements of Muslims in Australia and abroad. And sadly, we are closed at the moment, but we are hoping, God willing, inshallah, to be open in November. If you haven't been to the museum, you can do a virtual tour of the Islamic Museum. And we've also got a lot of online programs. So please make a connection to the museum if you haven't already done so. So it was recognised that an Islamic museum was required many years ago. There's no dedicated space. Many Muslims were organising mosque tours. They were visiting students in schools. And it became to be a little bit difficult and challenging for many reasons. For me personally, I would conduct mosque tours on a regular basis. I was doing a mosque tour at Sunshine Mosque for 200 students at a local school. And on the same day, we also had a funeral prayer at the mosque. So we had 200 morning worshippers and 200 screaming teenagers. So not the greatest combination. And there was one time I was giving a mosque tour at the Jeffcott Street Mosque, and sometimes homeless people from Flagstaff Gardens used to come to our mosque to have a shower. And one man was sort of trapped in the bathroom. 100 elite private school girls were in the room next door, and he actually ran right across with a tiny little hand towel, much to the shock and horror of teachers and students. So many examples of why a dedicated space was required. Melbourne has Chinese Museum, Jewish, Hellenic, Museo Italiano, so it makes sense that we have an Islamic museum to add to this very rich multicultural landscape. The official opening of the museum was 2014. Prior to that, well, actually it took about 3 years for the museum to be established. The founder is Mustafa Fahor, and he assembled a team of volunteers to establish the Islamic Museum. And we had wonderful support from the community, from the wider community and from the Muslim community as well, in particular the Pakistani community, led by Aisha Bucks, instrumental in really assisting us in our early days to collect urgently needed funds. And there were many other communities as well that also came on board with the wider community. This is our opening, 2014. It was a very lavish affair. Someone had a harebrained idea of hiring a live camel. The camel actually splashed me. I was all decked out in my best outfit, and he actually urinated and splashed me in the process of doing so. Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy night, but it was a lot of fun, a very memorable occasion. The architecture of the museum is really quite impressive. And it's basically a fusion between Australian surroundings and Islamic design principles. So you've got the white geometric tiles, you've got an Arabic verse from the Quran that says, "We narrate to you stories so you may reflect." And then you've got the Australian component, which is the rusted corten veil, which is supposed to evoke the Australian outback. And we had a Turkish visitor years ago who said, "Oh, your building's beautiful, but your steel must be very poor quality because it's rusted so quickly. It's such a new building. Why is it rusted so quickly?" The foyer of the museum is very impressive as you walk in. And there are 5 permanent exhibitions. So each gallery has been carefully curated, and there's a strategic message behind each gallery. So with the Islamic Faith Gallery, we've got the Islamic Contribution to Civilization Gallery, Islamic Art, Architecture, and Australian Muslim History. We also have a visiting exhibition. So every 3 to 6 months, the visiting exhibition changes. And one of my favourite visiting exhibitions was a collaboration between an Australian Jewish artist, Damon Kowarski, and a Pakistani Muslim, Atif Khan. And they came together in collaboration to create a beautiful exhibition called Hybrid. And I'd encourage you to look that one up. So with the Islamic Faith Gallery, it basically provides an introduction to the beliefs and pillars of Muslims. It also helps debunk some of the stereotype associated with Islam and Muslims, for example, women. There's a very important picture here of a sort of prophetic tree. So it's illustrating 25 prophets that are mentioned in the Quran. And there's a panel next to it that actually mentions the status of Jesus in Islam and the fact that Muslims believe in the virgin birth of Jesus. This is stunning paper cutting work. The artist's name is Tusif Ahmed. He's from Perth. He has Pakistani heritage. Tusif created this piece. It is 99 words to describe the qualities of God. And this piece has been handmade from 3 pieces of paper. It's took him about 4 months to create, and it's 99 words to describe God's qualities. And what I really enjoy when I conduct tours at the Islamic Museum and I proudly show this beautiful piece of art, we have a lot of atheists that come to the museum and they wouldn't really appreciate anyone talking to them about God, but because this art is so beautiful and impressive, they're drawn in to learn more about God's qualities, which is described in the panel next to it. Our quotes wall, for me, I think is a great bridge between Muslims and people of other faiths and no faith. And it helps people understand the commonalities and similarities that we share in all religions. So, for example, the one that really strikes me is none of you truly believe unless they love for others what they love for themselves. And that's a teaching in Islam, but it's also a teaching in Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, even humanism. Even people who don't believe in God subscribe to this teaching. Repel evil with good and you will find your enemy will become a devoted friend. I often share the story of the fact that as a Muslim leader, I get a lot of hate mail. And I always feel, this need to respond to this hate mail. I don't just ignore it, I always respond to it. And one man, his name was Dave, he sent me this horrible email, beep Muslims, go back to where you came from. You want to do this, you want to do that. I'm like, hey, Dave, how you going? No Muslim I know wants to do any of those things. And he kept emailing me with the most outrageous, offensive, sweeping generalizations about Islam and Muslims. And I felt compelled to respond to Dave. And he stopped emailing me for a few weeks, which was a nice break. And then I click on my inbox a few weeks later and I see his name there. I'm thinking, what does Davo want now? And it's this animation, 2 puppy dogs, love hearts, and says, you are one of my dearest friends, send this to 6 of your dearest friends. So this, this guy who hated my guts is suddenly sending me a friendship chain email. The next gallery is Islam's Contribution to Civilization. And I begin the talk in this gallery by acknowledging the fact that Muslim scholars, Jewish, Christian, Zoroastrian scholars, and people of other faiths came together 1,000 years ago. They were making their own inventions, improving on existing inventions, and translating the works, the Greeks, the Romans, the Indians, into Arabic, and then that knowledge was spread around the world. So this gallery really does highlight what happens when we come together to collaborate. So this particular, sorry, I'm just conscious of time, so I'm just rushing through a few of the slides. The Islamic Art Gallery is probably my favourite gallery. I'm actually a scientist. I'm a science teacher, so I had a great aversion to art before I got involved at the Islamic Museum. My art teacher in year 10 held my art up to the class and said, this is how not to do it. So I really struggled with art when I was young, but being involved in the museum, I can see what a powerful medium art is to engage with hearts and minds. And this particular mosaic, it's created by a beautiful artist by the name of Anisa Sharif. And what I love about Anisa is that she actually, most of the art that she creates, not all of it, but most of the art that she creates is community art projects. So she brings women from all different faiths and no faiths to come together to create stunning mosaic. So she uses art to bring women together. This is a gorgeous piece as well. This is, there's a woman called Kath Braid. She's an Australian artist, and she went to Chitral in Pakistan and she asked the women of Chitral, what are you praying for? And this is a collection of the prayers of 100 women. And these prayers have been hand embroidered in Urdu. And some of these prayers, one woman's praying that her pimples go away, another woman's praying that she marries somebody really rich, but most of the prayers are about peace in their home, in their village, in their country, in the world. No one's praying for Muslim domination around the world. So this piece of art allows us to enter the hearts and minds of these amazing women that are thousands and thousands of miles away. This is one of my favourite pieces. It's called The Big Jihad. The artist, the sculptor, Abdurrahman Abdullah, is trying to reclaim the word jihad. Jihad does not mean holy war. Jihad means struggle. And the biggest struggle is the internal struggle, the struggle that we all have to try and be the best version of ourselves. And we're all going through the struggle of COVID at the moment, but we try and be resilient and calm and patient in the face of such a difficult test. Next gallery is the Architecture Gallery, and then we have the Australian Muslim History Gallery. And this gallery is really important because it captures the history of Muslims in Australia. So the first Muslims to come to Australia were the Macassan fishermen, and they came from what we now refer to as Indonesia. They asked permission to land in Australia. They gave gifts to First Nations people, and they started a very meaningful trade relationship with First Nations people. So they were the Macassan fishermen. They came in the 16 and 1700s. Some reports say 1600s, some say 1700s, and that trade relationship lasted for centuries. The Afghan camel drivers came in the 1800s. They built railway tracks and telegraph lines and transported supplies right around Australia. So they made a huge contribution to Australia, but sadly, most Australians are not aware of the contributions that they made, and even Muslims aren't aware. So it's really important that we capture this history and share this with the rest of Australia so Muslims themselves can have a greater connection to Australia, and so the wider community can appreciate the contributions that Muslims have made to this wonderful nation. So the education program at the Islamic Museum is really quite really popular. We get excellent feedback from our visitors. And I wanted to share this quote with you. This is by James Banks from the University of Washington, the importance of educating children and educating children to understand and respect difference. The most important skill we can teach our children is how to get along with others. The world's greatest problems do not result from people being unable to read and write. They result from people in the world from different cultures, races, religions, and nations being unable to get along to solve the world's intractable problems. So a visit to the Islamic Museum can help students understand the other, help students cultivate respect. This is feedback from a teacher at Erasmus Primary School. We loved the day. It was so important for us to come and we learnt so much. The students were very grateful and a number of them wrote about how it completely changed their perception of Islam. Thank you so much for the heart and commitment you put into your work. Student feedback is also very positive. The question here, have your views about Islam changed? If so, how? Yes, I don't feel worried about them and now I feel safe and secure. We've had students who have, in their feedback form, stated that they have stayed up all night, terrified about the fact that they were going to visit the Islamic Museum and meet Muslims. We've had students who have hidden from the school bus because they were so reluctant to visit the Islamic Museum. And then they have told us that after they visit the museum, it's been one of their best excursions. We've had a 92-year-old woman who said to me, "You're the first Muslim I've ever spoken to. And for years, I have felt crippled with fear towards Islam and Muslims. And now that I've visited your museum and seen how beautiful it is and met friendly Muslims, now that fear has dissipated." I wanted to talk briefly about a really important program that I feel so honoured to be part of, and it's called the Museums Together program. So, back in 2015, I met a woman, her name is Ilana Kempler, and she was touring the museum with a Jewish community group, and she took me aside and she said, "Sherene, I've got this idea. I want somehow to bring Jewish students to the Islamic Museum, and I want Muslim students to reciprocate that visit, and the Muslim students to visit the Jewish Museum. What can we do? How can we make it happen?" And I said, "Look, I would certainly be on board." The Jewish Museum went and sought funds and they got money from the Sydney Maya Foundation, and this amazing program was born. In 2019, 100 students were involved in the project, and we're running the project this year. We came to an abrupt halt due to the lockdown, but we will be reopening it in November. And what's so heartening about the feedback that we received in 2019, these were 100 grade 6 students, and I received feedback from Jewish students and from Muslim students, and it was the same feedback. The feedback that I received was that during their grade 6 graduation ceremony, students spoke on stage and told their friends and colleagues and parents that the best part of their 6 years at school was this Museums Together project. And I'd really encourage you to look it up. I'll be happy to send you some information about it if you're not aware of it. So in 2017, I'm not sure if you remember, but a woman by the name of Sonia Kruger made quite offensive and outrageous comments calling for a moratorium on Muslim migration. And I'm no stranger to, hate speech like that in the media. Pauline Hanson, Andrew Bolt, so many people who subscribe to those very negative views. But for the first time, it was a TV celebrity that actually made these comments. And it was a very, very difficult time for the Muslim community. So many of us felt that we had been working in this space, reaching out to the wider community, doing everything we could to build bridges, promote harmony. And we felt that these comments had just taken us, 10 steps backwards. And it was very, very challenging. The tension in the wider community was palpable. And I remember writing a letter to the Age newspaper. And what I found was that there were people in the community, and I'm sure the group that I'm speaking to today are this group of people. This group of people went out of their way to show kindness and warmth and support to the Muslim community. And then on the other hand, so it was like a dichotomy, on the other hand, there were people who went out of their way to show hatred and negativity towards the Muslim community. So I wrote a letter to the Age newspaper, and I just wanted to acknowledge the wonderful people that have chosen the path of understanding and education, and instead of the path of fear. And I said, thank you so much for what you do, and you just make this world a better place. And I want to invite you to the museum for a coffee, my shout. And so this letter was published in the Age newspaper. A few people responded to it. A few emails, a few letters, nothing substantial. And a woman by the name of Fiona Scott Norman saw the letter, and she contacted me and organised a Facebook group, an event, and she called it Coffee with Sherene. And she said, Sherene, just come to the museum on Saturday. I'd love you to meet some of my friends. And I thought there'd be like 5 or 10. There was 55 friends that she brought with her, and it was such an amazing event. Magda Zabansky was there. You'll see her in the photo. She actually went on Q&A a few weeks later, and she referred to the event. And since that, I didn't really like the name of Coffee with Sherene, so I changed it to Coffee with a Muslim. And since then, we've had about 7 or 8 events right around Victoria. And the last thing I'd like to share with you before I finish up was the Mosque Open Day that took place in 2019. The Islamic Council Victoria was responsible for putting together Mosque Open Day. And I think it was the second year that it was running. I think the first year it was running was 2018. And then we were supposed to be having Mosque Open Day in 2019. But the Christchurch terror attacks occurred 2 days prior to the Mosque Open Day. So Friday, Jummah prayer, 51 Muslims were gunned down while praying in 2 mosques in Christchurch. And it was a very, very challenging time for all Muslims. So you can imagine the Mosque Open Day was scheduled to take place 2 days after these terrorist attacks. And the ICV met with mosques and in the Islamic Museum and said, should we go ahead? And every mosque except 2 agreed to go ahead, and the Islamic Museum said, yes, we will go ahead with Museum Open Day. So instead of Mosque Open Day, we called it Museum Open Day. We had over 700 visitors come and see us. And these visitors came, they didn't come to visit the Islamic Museum, they just came to reach out to the Muslim community. They came with flowers, they came with gifts, cards, and hugs. It was a good thing we didn't have COVID then, because there's so many bear hugs, and it was so therapeutic and so cathartic. And I can't tell you the impact that had and on so many Muslims. And it really, for me personally, it gave me the strength to keep going. So I just want to, I'll just finish up here. I want to acknowledge the wonderful work that you all do. I want us to all remember the need to choose knowledge over ignorance, to choose love over hate, to choose hope over fear. And we need to continue to build bridges with one another, because if we want this amazing country of ours to become even more amazing, it's just what we have to do. So keep doing the wonderful work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sherene. That was so enlightening, everything that you told us. You've emphasized the great importance of different cultures getting to know each other. And it's the face-to-face. We need to meet up with each other, no matter what faith we belong to. Your building is unbelievable. I absolutely love the building. But the beauty also of the building is that you brought in the different faiths to construct this magnificent building of yours. Congratulations, it's wonderful. And thank you for everything that you're doing, because it's for the community. You're doing it for all of us. Thank you very much.
My honour. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.